Hi, everyone. Welcome to the December Data and Performance Management meeting. Thank you for joining. Please enter your agency name into the chat box so we know who is participating. As a reminder, we do encourage participation during this meeting. So if you are able to unmute yourself at any time to ask questions or make comments, please do that. Otherwise, you can also participate by using the chat. So today we're going to talk about the HMIS data quality plan and then transitional housing project performance reports. So the HMIS data quality plan has been under development for a little while and was kind of discussed a bit, I think, last year. And then so now we want to finalize the data quality plan and officially release it for the users. So the purpose of the data quality plan first is to help users understand the different components of data quality, to standardize data quality monitoring and reporting processes, establish policies for data quality incentives and enforcements, and provide users with tools to manage their agency's data quality. So the plan first covers the different components of data quality. So the first component is data completeness, which is the percentage of data of required data that is known and documented in HMIS. And we do have a number of reports that you can run to review data completeness for your agency. The first is the Universal Data Elements Completeness Report. This is similar data to what we're posting on our data quality report cards and includes the demographic information collected on the client profile screen, as well as a few fields from the enrollment screen, like relationship to head of household, the prior living situation questions, and also the client's destination. In addition to the Universal Data Elements Completeness Report, we also have program-specific data elements reports that look at entry and exit data. So that's all the other fields on the enrollment screen, like the disability types, income, health insurance, non-cash benefits. All that can be found on the program-specific data elements completeness reports. Also, if you have special funding like RIE, PATH, HOPWA, VASH, and there might be a couple others, there are program-specific data elements for each of those funding components as well. And then finally, we have the data quality report cards that we publish on a quarterly basis that you can review data completeness for your projects. The next component of data quality covered in the plan is data coverage. So this is the homeless service providers within the geographic area or Orange County, and what percentage of those are entering data into HMIS. This data is collected as part of the housing inventory count that we do on an annual basis. So we're looking at how many beds are in Orange County and what percentage of those are in HMIS. And we are reviewed on this as part of our COC applications, which is why it's so critical to get as many projects participating in HMIS as possible. The next component of data quality is bed utilization, which is looking at, of the beds that are entered into HMIS, what percentage of those are actually filled. So this data we regularly look at as part of the project performance reports, as many of you know. And we do also look at this data on the housing inventory count as well that we complete on an annual basis. The next component of data quality is data timeliness, which is that data is collected in HMIS and available when it when it's needed. And so the way we measure this is by looking at the number of days between the date the information was collected and the date it was entered into HMIS. And so to review data timeliness for your projects, you can look at the data quality report cards that we publish on a quarterly basis. We also have 3 data timeliness looker reports that you can run to look at your data timeliness for project start data, project exit data, and service data. The next component of data quality is data accuracy. So this is ensuring that the data entered into HMIS accurately reflects the client's information about both their record and the services that they are receiving. So we don't just want the fields to be entered, we want that information to be true. So that's what data accuracy is looking at. And we have the data accuracy dashboard, which allows you to review your data and make sure that that is true as well. And the last component of data quality is data consistency. So this is making sure that the way the data is collected is consistent across Orange County and that all agencies and projects are entering data the same way for each data element. And this isn't really a report, it's more training and making sure that users understand the fields that they're collecting and how they should be used. So we have different materials that help with data consistency. We have 2 different cheat sheets that look at profile creation and enrollment data and one that looks at exiting and assessments. We have another document for data elements and reporting. Many of you know we also have knowledge base articles and HMIS training courses. So this is the first part of the data quality plan. Like I said, it goes over each of the components of data quality. And then the reports and materials that I mentioned for each component are included in those sections in some cases. And then we also have an appendix and a separate table that includes this information so that your agencies can kind of go into the details of your data quality and review those issues. The next section of the data quality plan is talking about our data quality monitoring and reporting process. So this is specific to the process that we complete in order to publish the data quality report cards. And we have a timeline that we kind of are working towards in terms of getting the report cards completed and published. So we do them on a quarterly basis. Around the 5th of the month, the goal is to send corrections to the agencies and agency administrators. And then the agencies will have about a couple weeks to review the reports that we send and correct any data quality issues. And then the goal is for us to publish these data quality report cards by the end of the month following the quarter. So this table is included in the data quality plan. We also have some more written instructions around the data quality monitoring and reporting process. The next section of the data quality plan reviews incentives and enforcements. And so this is something that we've worked with the data group on in the past to kind of draft. And then we recently met with the HMIS working group to get their review and feedback of the data quality plan. And this is kind of where we landed on the incentives and enforcements. So first for incentives, Agencies with projects that met data quality thresholds for all 4 quarters in the calendar year will be shared with the COC board and also published on the OCHMIS website. So this is just kind of a way to acknowledge those agencies that are meeting our thresholds and doing a great job with their data quality. And the way this will probably end up looking is that we will have a list of the agencies, and then we'll have how many projects at those agencies met the data quality thresholds for all 4 quarters. And I looked at our last 4 quarters of published data to kind of get a sense of what that would look like. And 100 projects, which is about 26% of the projects in HMIS, met their data quality thresholds for each of the last 4 quarters. So that's great. A quarter of our projects are meeting all the thresholds on a regular basis, which is great. We're hoping to get that number higher, obviously, as we roll this out and kind of work with the agencies more on their data quality. And then enforcement. So this is meant to allow us to focus on the agents or the projects that need the most support with their data quality. It's not really meant to be punishing or anything like that. It's just kind of, since there's so many projects, there's about 400, we have to have a way to prioritize projects to improve their data quality. So that's kind of where this section comes in. So first, projects with at least 4 data elements under 80% in a quarter will receive technical support from 2-in-1 Orange County. And so just to give a sense of what that would look like, over the last 4 quarters, there was between 6 and 8 projects a quarter that would fall into that category. So it would just be 2-in-1 reaching out to the agencies with those projects and kind of talking through with them the data elements that they're having problems with data quality and kind of work with them as much as possible. And in these 4 quarters, a bunch of these projects repeated. So hopefully, as we start the technical assistance, these numbers will start going down over time, since it's going to be some of the same projects quarter over quarter. The second enforcement would be for those projects whose data quality score is less than 80% for all 4 quarters in the calendar year. Those projects will be put on a performance improvement plan. And so in that case, it's really unlikely for that to happen for projects. We only had 2 that fell into that category. And so that would be a little bit more of a detailed dive with the agency, and it would involve like due dates for improving certain data quality elements and that kind of thing. And I also wanted to add, in reviewing the data, for street outreach projects, I can practically hear some of you worrying about street outreach. So for street outreach projects, we are only going to be looking at data quality for those clients that have a date of engagement. And so I actually have been looking at the report cards today and making some updates to revise that in the future, so that those street outreach clients that don't have a date of engagement won't be included on the report cards moving forward. So those of you with street outreach projects, you'll likely see your data quality improve a bit on the next report card.
Heck yeah.
I know, like, I can hear Cassie right now.
Woo.
Yeah, so keep an eye out in January when we post the next one, and then that'll give you a better idea of where you stand.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, and then so to kind of continue with the enforcements, like I mentioned, if the data quality is low for below 80% for 4 quarters, you'll be put on a performance improvement plan. And if the goals of the performance improvement plan aren't met, there's a couple things that could happen. If your project is not getting funding that requires HMIS participation, you will be removed from HMIS, and then you'll be allowed to reapply for access after 3 months. If the project is receiving COC or ESG funding, we will be letting the ESG funders know, as well as the COC board. And then any agencies that are with projects on a performance improvement plan are not eligible to apply for new funding opportunities approved by the COC board. And so, like I said, it's really uncommon for a project to even qualify performance improvement plan. Right now, it's only 2. And then when we develop a performance improvement plan, we would be working with you on what's feasible and what the timeline should be on how to meet those goals. So the ultimate goal is for the projects to succeed. It's not to punish and do any of this stuff. So we're hoping the performance improvement plan will be kind of collaborative, and it won't come to any of this that's on this slide. But we just need to have something in place in case it were to occur. Let me go back. Okay, so that was the different components of the data quality plan, like I said. So the next steps for the plan, when we send out the meeting minutes for this meeting, I will include the data quality plan as well as the chart that has the tools for data quality for all the agencies. So you all will have the opportunity to review the full plan, and then you can submit any feedback to the help desk, and we can incorporate your feedback. And then in January, we are planning to bring this data quality plan to the Policies, Procedures, and Standards Committee, and then hopefully also to the COC board in January for approval. And then if it's approved in January, then we will be releasing it to the agencies. And so then the first quarter we would be looking at for this new incentives and enforcements would be for January through March of 2023. So we're not going to go backwards because of the street outreach thing and how we're updating it for the date of engagement date. Any comments or questions about the data quality plan, or does anybody want me to go back to anything?
Hi, I had a comment. I guess I don't know if it's too late in the process to bring something like this up, but maybe it could be used in the future if it is. But I'm open to kind of hearing what people think. For the individual coordinated entry system program, we've been working a lot on data quality lately, trying to kind of come up with our own plan. And I think that it's a unique program just because the Friendship Shelter and the different agencies, we're administering it, but we don't directly work with participants. So a lot of the time the data quality issues that come up are really sort of like spread out, like the responsibility is kind of on a lot of different agencies. I'm wondering if there's any way of bringing that into the process, like if we, for the County of Orange data, for ICES, if we could have maybe a page, and it doesn't even need to match up with the enforcements or the incentives, but maybe just having it kind of clear, maybe broken up by access point, if that enrollment information is causing data quality issues, like just to kind of spread the responsibility a little bit, would that be possible?
We could include like a subsection or like revisions to the enforcements or whatever, that if it applies to an access point, that they could be removed from coordinated entry if that's something that the CES admins are interested in. I would say the thresholds we have would still remain the same. I think it's 95% for coordinated entry. And we do, as part of the data quality plan, we do say that each agency should have their own specific plan, including like, okay, I'm going to review reports on a monthly basis, and then I'm going to send my own revision or reports out, on the 10th of each month or whatever. So we do want all agencies to have their own plan, because coordinated entry is shared across multiple agencies. We could potentially include something specific for that if you had something you wanted to incorporate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there hasn't been talk of like needing to, limit access or anything like that. That could be a future conversation. I don't feel comfortable making the decision. I wouldn't really vote for that though, but I think more just like if you had, as part of the dashboard, a way of breaking up the County of Orange data by access point, so that like an agency, even if it is us, like Friendship Shelter, if we go in and we say like how many people are we responsible for right now, and what does the data quality look like in terms of like our participants for coordinated entry, so that we could break it up just so that it could be a little bit more integrated, I guess, with your plan. I don't know if that's something that you're open to, just like changing the dashboard or having the reports sort of be updated so that somebody could filter that way.
We can look at updating our dashboards to have an access point filter. It might be a separate dashboard that's specific for coordinated entry. We'd have to look at it, but we can look at that. I think we do on the corrections we send. I think it does have access point on there, right?
Honestly, I think because we're not agency administrators technically under County of Orange, we don't get a lot of those reports. So I think if those are being sent, it's probably Rebecca. So I might have to reach out to her. But at least for some of the ones that like we've specifically requested, yeah, I usually ask for access point. But a lot of them, we just kind of run them ourselves and then reach out. But I think having like a central place, if data quality is already being addressed here, it just might be nice to have a way for them to do that. Even if I guess if it's a separate dashboard, as long as it's sort of included in, what gets sent out, I think that'd be okay with me.
Okay, we can look into it a little more. Does anyone else have comments or questions about this data quality plan? Or concerns? All right, I'm not seeing anything come up. We can also always come back to it later if anyone thinks of anything they want to share. Like I said, we will send out the meeting minutes and include the draft documents so that you can review and provide any feedback prior to it going to the PPS committee. So let me get into the transitional housing project performance reports. All right. So the reporting period for the transitional housing project performance reports was October 1st, 2021 through September 30th of 2022. As usual, we do have the project scores page, which lists all of our transitional housing projects and how they performed on each of our performance measures. So if you haven't already, please check that out. For our meeting, we will be focusing on the goals and outcomes report, which looks at transitional housing project performance as a whole. So our first measure is goal 1, clients entering from literal homelessness. Over the past 4 reports that we've done, we're seeing an increase in clients entering from literal homelessness, which is great. Generally speaking, entries from homelessness for transitional housing projects is a little bit lower because most transitional housing projects are privately funded and have a little bit different requirements in terms of entries from homelessness and a little bit looser requirements, I would say. So that's why this measure is a little bit lower compared to other project types. Our next measure is looking at the amount of time clients are staying in transitional housing projects. Our goal is 180 days or less, and we're a little bit above that, but we are staying consistent over time. So at least we're not having huge increases. Our next goal is the utilization of transitional housing beds. Our utilization has increased, which is great. This is likely due to COVID kind of easing off, and clients are a little more comfortable utilizing these beds because there was a period where utilization was pretty low because clients didn't want to be around other people. Our next measure is adults that increase their income while enrolled in the project. We've had a little bit of a decline, but we are still meeting our threshold of 15% or more. And then I can get a little bit more into the details in that in a minute. We also have for goal 7, the adults that increase their income by the time they exit the project. Again, we've had a little bit of a decline, but not huge. We're pretty close to consistent across the 4 reports. And then really same thing for goals 8 and 10 in terms of consistency. Goal 8 is looking at exits to successful housing situations for transitional housing projects. That means exiting to permanent housing. So we're pretty consistent around 58 to 60%. And goal 10 returns to homelessness. So clients are exited to permanent housing, and then they are returning to another project in HMIS within 2 years of their exit. So to go into the details a little bit, so first we have goal 1 again. This is entries from literal homeless situations. The clients that are not entering from homeless situations, a lot of them are entering after being with family or friends, followed by institutional settings and temporary situations. The percentage of clients that didn't provide their entry situation is only 3 clients, which is great. And like I said, the requirements from where clients are entering from are a little less strict for transitional housing, which is why there's so many entering from family and friends. Our next measure is how long clients are staying in transitional housing. You can see that families, so households that have children, are on average staying in transitional housing projects longer than households without children. And this chart here is looking at all of the enrollments that are included in this measure and how long they're staying in the project. And the 423 here represent the enrollments that are meeting our threshold. So that's over 50%, which is great. So we're trying to get as many enrollments as we can in this first category. Goal 5 is looking at unit utilization of transitional housing beds. So you can see there are units for households with children are more fully utilized than households without children. And this is likely because households with children, they each get their own unit and their own room or living space for themselves, so that, and they don't have to share with other families, so that maybe why their utilization is higher than households without children. And then the bar chart is counting the number of projects that are included in this measure and what their unit utilization is. So for HUD, 65% to about 105% is considered normal. So most of our projects fall into that category. But our threshold for the percentage of units and beds that we want occupied is 80%. Our next measure is adults increasing their income while enrolled in the project. So the enrollments included in this measure is usually pretty low because they have to remain enrolled for a year or more. And so you can see the number of clients is only 29, and that's why. So the performance for the project type as well as the household types is the same. And you can see only 17% increased their income, but we did have another 76% that maintained it. And only 7% had a decrease, which is great. The next measure is looking at increase in income as of exit. So the numbers for this are a lot higher than the previous measure because it's looking at all adults who exited during the reporting period. You can see households with children are more likely to exit with increased income than the households without children. And that may contribute also to why their exits to permanent housing here are higher. And like I mentioned earlier, the length of stay for households with children is also longer, so that could be contributing to these higher numbers as well. So looking at the breakdown of the income status, we had almost 75% of the clients either had increased income or maintained income. Only 11% decreased their income. And then 17% had no income reported at entry or exit. The good news is we didn't have any missing income, which is great. I would just recommend looking really closely at those with no income to make sure that's accurate. And if needed, check in with your clients during their enrollment, complete that annual assessment if they've been there at least a year, to try and capture that income data. All right, exits to permanent housing. Like I mentioned, households with children are exiting to permanent housing than higher rates than those without children. And then our bar chart here is broken down into the situations that they're exiting to if it's not permanent housing. About a third of the unsuccessful exits are to missing destinations. This is usually due to clients disappearing or otherwise not wanting to share where they're going with the provider. And this is fairly typical in terms of the percentage of missing data, but just a reminder to try to build those relationships with clients as much as possible so that they want to share where they're exiting to try and improve this as much as possible. And then our last measure is goal 10. Clients that are exiting to permanent housing and then returning to a project in HMIS within 2 years. So you can see for the different household types, we're pretty consistent with the project type score. The rate of returns for chronically homeless and veterans is a little bit higher, but the number of clients included are also lower, so it could kind of be skewing the data upward. We try to limit the returns to homelessness as much as possible, just to, you know, keep the client in housing and not have to go through the process of housing them again. And as much as possible, we recommend following up with clients after their exit to see if there's any additional support they need to keep them housed, so that they're not returning to the system. Also, this chart is showing where clients are returning to after they exit the transitional housing project. And you can see half are returning to rapid rehousing. And there are clients that can transition from transitional housing to rapid rehousing. There are projects that allow that. So I would recommend when we send the draft data for the PPRs, I would recommend looking at goal 10 because it will show you the clients that are exiting from your transitional housing project. And it'll say they're returning to this project, and this project is a rapid rehousing project. And I recommend looking at the exit date from your transitional housing project and the entry date into that rapid rehousing project. And if it's supposed to be a transfer from transitional housing to rapid rehousing, the exit date of the transitional housing project and the entry into the rapid rehousing project should probably be the same date if they're moving from one to the other. And if that is the case, that's not considered a return to homelessness, so they wouldn't be included on here. They're only included on here if the exit from the transitional housing project and then the entry into rapid rehousing is more than 2 weeks apart. And if it's meant to be like a flow through the system, there shouldn't be that big of a gap. So I recommend checking out those dates when we send the draft data for the PPRs. And then our second bar chart is how long it's taking clients to return to the homeless system after they exit from transitional housing. So about half of all of the returns are happening within the first 6 months. So if clients are kind of able to get over that hump, they're more likely to not return. So the first 6 months is when we would recommend following up with the clients to check in, see if they need any additional resources or any other help to maintain the housing that they're in. And that is the last measure I have on the project performance reports. Does anyone have any comments or questions or any details they want me to go over for the PPR? Right, I'm not seeing anything coming in. So that is all the content I had for today. If you haven't already, please enter your agency name into the chat box so we know who's participating. As usual, we will send out the meeting minutes and recording from this meeting. And like I mentioned, we will also send out a draft of the data quality plan. Our next data meeting is scheduled for January 12th at 1:30. And thank you all so much for attending, and I hope you have a good holiday season. Have a good day, everyone.